action! It's about a chase through the ages, a race against time. The war between good and evil.
Come on out, everybody! It's time to play!
And the final battle between man...
I'm sorry.
...and demon.
I'm not gonna hurt you. I lied.
Demon Knight.
Hi, my name is Michael McCartney. I am the proud artistic director of the Sleepy Hollow International Film Festival. And sadly, we cannot be, I know this is going to go terribly with you guys. Sadly, we cannot be in Sleepy Hollow or in the Hudson River Valley this October. We decided to shut down the festival. So in lieu of that, we're doing some awesome panels, the first and foremost of which is on the 25th anniversary of the awesome, incredible, strange, bizarre movie, exciting movie, Demon Knight. And we've got some awesome guests here today to discuss that. Below in the edit, you will see some information about Hudson River Valley and donating to some great causes in the Hudson River Valley. They are a terrific community that we love a great deal, and we wish we could be there. But we hope you'll reach out and support them. So I'm going to take now a moment to introduce our panel here, starting with the terrific director, cinematographer, incredible man, Ernest Dickerson, who has filmed and shot a great deal of movies, including, including Juice, including filmed Malcolm X, I think the movie before Demon Knight might have been potentially, and a lot of early Spike stuff. Jungle Fever, Malcolm X, Do the Right Thing. He's directed Juice, Surviving the Gang, Bones, Dexter, The Walking Dead, Bosch. I could go on forever and ever. Ernest Dickerson, yes.
Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, and I'm going to introduce the writers here, Cyrus Voris and Ethan Reiff. Terrific writers, a range of work from Kung Fu Panda, Brimstone, Bulletproof Monk, Nightfall, and many other incredibly cool projects. Hi guys, thanks for being here. We have the incredible actor Charles Fleischer, who is a comedian and a genius of an actor, an incredibly funny man, the voice of Roger Rabbit, Tales from the Crypt, many TV shows, Gridlock, Zodiac, incredible guy. So happy to have you here, Charles. And apparently the king of the rave with his glow stick. And then finally, the superb special effects artist, Todd Masters, Todd Masters, SFX designer, creator of all of the Tales of Crypt series. Is that correct?
Not all of them, but a lot of them. Most of them, certainly.
The good ones.
The good ones.
Yes.
Slither,
Yes.
Fringe, True Blood, some incredible projects there. I just learned the film to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Thank you for being here, Todd.
Thanks for having me.
So happy to have you guys. What a bunch of cool dudes to come out and hang out on a Sunday night and talk about an incredibly cool movie. Let's get it started. It starts with the script, I think, right? Everything starts with the script. For me, this script, I think I read, had been batted around for about 6 years before it became part of the franchise, the Tales of the Crypt franchise. How did that work out? I'd love to hear that story.
Well, we think it worked out great. So that's the end of that story. But the process was involved. It was the first thing that Cy and I and our third co-writer, Mark Bishop, was the first thing we ever wrote together. And from the moment we were done with it, we were kind of happily surprised. There always seemed to be some commercial interest in making it. Now, we didn't make a dime off that commercial interest for the vast majority of those intervening 5 or 6 unto 7 years. We had friends who were working at Silver Pictures, and Joel Silver was one of the big shot executive producer superstars behind the Tales from the Crypt TV show on HBO. And they were talking about making feature films connected to the franchise. And there was a package of 3 screenplays that had been generated, I believe, we weren't part of that, but in-house from Tales from the Crypt Productions. And the studio that they made the deal with was Universal. And one of the scripts in that package of 3 fell out.
Which was actually From Dusk Till Dawn, the Tarantino movie.
Yeah.
That was the third Tales from the Crypt movie. And then Tarantino blew up. So they had this open slot because they couldn't make a deal with him anymore because he wanted too much money. And so they had this open slot. And the way it was told to us, the only script, because the Tales from the Crypt franchise had a lot of, you had Walter Hill, Richard Donner, Joel Silver, Bob Zemeckis, a lot of heavyweights. And the only script everybody could sort of agree on, and I don't know that they all loved it, but they all were like, okay, this is pretty good. The only one they could agree on to throw into that third slot was Demon Knight.
Right, and so Demon Knight became the number 3 of the package of 3 scripts delivered to Universal. And the idea was it would be the last one made because it had the least connection to the franchise and was like the newest. And then the Universal executives read the package of 3 scripts and they came back to Tales from the Crypt and said, yeah, this is great, but we want you to make Demon Knight first, which was great for us, obviously.
I just wanted to go back, Mike, and say, because we sort of jumped over that 7-year period. There was always, like Ethan said, there was always somebody sort of Demon Knight had a lot of near misses before it came together with the Crypt guys and Ernest and Todd and everybody. There was a version that Tom Holland was going to make shortly after Child's Play. And that deal fell through. And then Mary Lambert, who had directed Pet Sematary, was going to do it for a while. I don't remember the Tom Holland, I don't remember any specifics from the Tom Holland version. I do remember the Mary Lambert version at the Irene's Hotel. Mary was really into doing theme rooms, like the Madonna Inn in Northern California. So that hotel, all the rooms were going to be like a safari room and a Satan room and a cave room or whatever. That's the one thing I remember about the Mary Lambert version. But so it was there was a close call. It was always sort of somebody was interested and then it just never got made and never sort of came together until, thankfully, luckily it fell into the Tales from the Crypt lap and
And were you guys the first Tales of the Crypt film or the second?
The first.
Well, the first from this era. I believe there is one Tales from the Crypt feature, right? Maybe from the early 70s or something.
Yeah.
But that was a British film though, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was. Yeah. And then one other anecdote from that origin story when it was still a script and not quite a movie yet is, so we went to LA to start that process, right? Or see what was going to happen. And I remember we went to Silver Pictures on the which at the time was still on the Warner Brothers lot.
I forgot.
And we were sitting there, and we had been there from time to time because there were other scripts of ours that batted around there and had potential futures, but never quite came together. And we were sitting there when Ernest showed up for our first big, creative meeting, writer, director get together. And Ernest came in and we just started talking, and it was one of those absolutely perfect moments for Cy and myself, because everything that Ernest said about the project were things that we were hoping and praying a director would say about the project, about what kind of movie it was going to be, what really mattered in the story. And the one thing, between Cy and myself, Cy is the more friendly and calm guy and likable guy. And I'm just a little more, even though I seem probably very normal and calm here, I'm the one who's really a little more crazy. And I had a shirt on, a long sleeve, button shirt. And under it, I had a t-shirt on. And so I'm talking to Ernest, and somehow it turns out that, because we don't just talk about the script, we're also talking about creative reference points or, tone and other projects that could inform or help to make this movie the best it can be. And somehow we get to Lone Wolf and Cub. And I literally unbuttoned my shirt because I had on a First Comics Lone Wolf and Cub t-shirt.
Wow.
And I was like, my mind was blown that in terms of Japanese comic samurai creativity, you know, we were both thinking the same thing about the screenplay, which on the surface of the pages in the text had nothing to do with that stuff. And so I had a strip for Ernest, just, you know, I couldn't contain my maddened enthusiasm.
Everyone else was wondering why you were taking your clothes off in the middle of a meeting.
I thought Ethan was going to tell the story that for a while, even when it was at, it was officially, Ernest was on board, I believe. It was going to be the Tales from Crypt movie. And at that point, the script was called, somebody had changed the title because the word in Hollywood was that demons don't sell. If you put demon in the title, it's a bad thing. So they had changed the title to Judgment Night. And then another movie was getting ready to come out. I think it was like Emilio Estevez.
I think it had
just come out called Judgment Night. Yeah. Yes, and so they couldn't really use the title anymore. And I remember it was our only official meeting with Joel on this project. We had a 5-minute meeting with Joel, and Joel was like, so what are we going to call this movie? We can't call it Judgment Night anymore. What are we going to call it? And then Ethan, my hero, stepped up and said, very bold, he said, well, you know, Joel, the original title was Demon Night with a K. And Joel thought about it for a second, and he was like, it's a good title. Yeah, we'll call it that. And that's how
sometimes once in a while they can pay to be the pushy loudmouth guy.
Ernest, how did you come on board?
I'm not sure how I got the job. I remember I was mixing Surviving the Game.
Oh, right.
I was doing the sound mix of Surviving the Game, and went in and talked with Gil Adler and Alan Katz, and you know, I know they wanted to see something, so actually I invited them to the final sound mix preview of Surviving the Game. I got them in to see it, and I guess maybe that helped a lot, you know, because it was the kind of film I had been looking for, you know, and you know, it's hard to find a good horror science fiction script, you know, and especially one that really has this mythology that's really, you know, beautifully worked out, and those are the, you know, I'm pretty serious about my horror, you know. My wife says I'm a bit of a snob with it, but I thought this was something that could really be really exciting. And
what were some of the aspects of that script that you thought jumped out at you beyond other scripts? I mean, the world, you know, there's so many great things about this script.
Well, you know, some of my favorite films are, you know, people that are trapped in an environment. You know, John Carpenter's The Thing is a big favorite film of mine, you know, and then the original Night of the Living Dead. And, you know, those are the kind of films that I was thinking about when, definitely The Thing, when we were putting Demon Night together. And I love the fact that every person had a weakness, and that's what the collector used against them. Whatever their little personality twist was something that he could turn into something to actually take possession of them, which I thought was great. It was a great script. I mean, you know, these guys just did a fabulous script.
Well, one thing I think so clear is like the human elements combined with these bigger, you know, supernatural elements, and then, you know, coupled with just an incredible cast. How did this cast get assembled? Charles, how did you get involved? How did this cast get assembled? I mean, what a ridiculously good cast you have in this. How did this come about? How does that magic happen?
I was in a coal mine in Bolivia rescuing dolphins.
Dolphins in Bolivia?
The great Bolivian dolphin.
Yeah, and that was supposed to be a script. And then when that got canceled, I went to Lake Tahoe to perform comedy. And a gentleman named Adler, who was one of the producers, called me up and asked if I wanted to be in the movie. And
Yeah.
they said,
You know,
Dickerson is directing. And I said, yes.
I mean, you know, casting is, to me, the most nerve-wracking part of putting a film together because, you know, I honestly believe that 85 to 90% of directing is casting. And you know, spending a lot of time, my first film, Juice, taught me, spend a lot of time, go through the torture, go through all the hassles you got to go through the nightmares, the sleepless nights, you know, when you're not sure if you're going to find the right person. And, you know, on that, we found Tupac, you know, Tupac, who was totally unknown, and we discovered Tupac Shakur, you know, who went on to, and this was before he became the musician that he's more known for. So,
Right.
you know, so finding, you know, the cast was paramount. You know, Charles, you know, once Charles's name came up, I said, yeah, you know, so I wanted to go after him. For Uncle Willie, you know, I grew up seeing Dick Miller. I mean, you know, I'm a big fan of Roger Corman's films, and Dick Miller was a guy I grew up with, and to be able to work with him. And I think maybe Thomas Hayden Church came in and auditioned.
Wow.
Amazing. Great.
I think he did. Brenda Backey, I had seen in a Japanese science fiction film called Gunhead, and she was really good. And CCH Pounder, you know, I've always been, you know, always loved her work. And when it came to Geraldine, Joel had somebody else in mind, but I had just seen Menace to Society, and I always saw Geraldine as, you know, this itty bitty little lady, you know, who just winds up being this who winds up being the next Demon Knight. And I also had it in my head that, you know, Geraldine is the kind of character when you introduce her, you think she's probably going to be one of the first persons to die. You know, usually in horror films, the black characters are the first ones to go. And I thought this would be a good way of creating an interesting, what they now call the Last Lady movies.
And Jada, so is it true Jada showed up on set with short blonde hair, unbeknownst to most people?
Well, she called me a couple of nights before, and because we were heavily in prep, she was set, and then she called me up and said, "Hey, Ernest, I don't know how to tell you this, but I colored my hair." I said, "What color did you color your hair?" She says, "Well, it's kind of platinum." I said, "What?" So I said, "I got to see it." So she came over to my place and showed it to me, and it was platinum. It was, you know, it was white platinum, you know. And I said, "Okay, I see where you're going, but put some color in it, put some yellow in it, you know, make it more blonde. I think the platinum is too extreme, you know."
Do you think she did that specifically for the film, or was that just some?
Yeah, I think she did. Yeah. She did.
For
You
Will.
know, and you know, it's interesting because, you know, actors can sometimes bring something new to a scene that you never even thought of. And it kind of gave her a young punky look.
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay, but just don't make it platinum. Put some gold in it, you know, make it more blonde." And she did, and I thought it worked fine. And
Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah.
And I've read also that Billy Zane says it's one of his favorite parts. How did that happen?
He, you know, when Billy came in, it was so interesting because Billy came in with a bunch of wigs.
Speaking of hair, I was going to say, speaking of hair, you have to.
Speaking of hair, yeah, of course.
He came in with a bunch of hair pieces because everything we'd seen him in, he had hair. I first saw Billy Zane years before that in a movie called Dead Calm.
Yeah.
You know, and he was like this handsome guy that comes onto the boat that winds up being this psychopathic killer, you know,
Right.
and you know, but then when, you know, he came in with the wigs, and I said, well, what's under the wig? You know, what's, and he took it off and it was bald, and whoa, you know, but it kind of felt right, you know, it kind of felt unexpected and right, you know, and it's like one of those weird things where sometimes you just got to go on a feeling, you know. Sometimes, you know, there's no logic to the decisions that you make, but it just feels like the right way to go. And it was a way of, he's always been very pretty. He's always been an extremely handsome guy, you know, and the bald was a way of backing off from that a little bit. He still had the face, the really handsome face, but the baldness just gave him a little bit more of a sinister quality.
Yeah. And let's start, while we're on Zane, like the choices he makes in this movie are just totally outrageous and interesting. You know, I can imagine part of that was like thrilling, and part of that was like, yo, you got to tone it down a little and keep in the movie. You know, as I'd imagine, how did you feel about that? I mean, so like, you know, sponge out of the mouth. And I mean, there's so many cool choices he made.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff was made up right there on the spot. You know, even after he crashes through the window and he says, you know,
You fucking ho dunk, po dunk, well then there, motherfuckers!
the whole dunk, bowl dunk, well then there, motherfuckers! Which actually became a classic line. A lot of people loved that line, you know, and it was just a way of elevating the character, you know.
Yeah.
He felt it, you know. The devil has a sense of humor. This demon has a sense of humor, you know.
Yeah, well, I think that, you know, I mean, the unexpected castings for Charles too. This, like, you know, this is a pretty serious part, you know, for a legendary comic. You know, it's sort of, you know, unexpected casting choices, bringing out parts of them that are, you know, revelatory. Charles, how do you feel about that? You feel about your character and the creation of that, or, you know, I mean, such a unique part, and kind of cool to see you in.
I'm just happy to work, to tell you the truth. I've been in summer stock theater. I've done just things in my yard for animals. So when you get a part in a movie with Billy Zane and Ernest Dickerson, and they have food on the set, you know that, right? Tables of food all the time. So, you know, character schmaracter, you know, funny schmoney. It's, you know, it's written on a page and then you make it real. I don't care if it's a Greek tragedy or surrealistic Jovian madness, as long as it's got heart and tells a story.
And what was great is how your character is scripted, that, you know, this meek, mild little guy, even though you do run to the ladies' rescue, but to find out that you had these grenades,
yeah,
you were going to take out the post office.
Would Wally actually have gone postal? Is the question, I think.
But, you know, don't mess with creepy guys who get turned down by hookers that like Thomas Hayden Church.
That's cool. And Todd, so how did you get involved in the project, Todd?
Well, I was the guy on the series for the longest time, and so I was running the makeup effects for many of the series at this point. So this was kind of summer hiatus from us doing the HBO show, and right. Gil Adler and Alan Katz, they were the producers on the series at that time, gave me the script and said, here, budget this. And I took it home and, you know, went, holy shit, this thing's great. And came back with a budget. And, you know, Gil's got this like great dry wit, and he just kind of stares me down like, you know, I'm nothing, and dismisses me out of his office. And then days pass, I guess, while he's like studying my very detailed and long, because it was demon after demon after demon. And he calls me back in the office a couple days later, and he gives me a new script, and the new script has no demons in it, because I guess I budgeted them out of range. And now the script had these Blues Brothers that were, you know, guys that looked like Men in Black, dark glasses, trench coats, and when they would tilt their eyeballs down, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I remember it like Blues Brothers. They had like fire in their eyes and maybe fire in their throat. And I read it, and I said to Gil and Alan, I said, we're Tales from the Crypt. We can't do a movie called Demon Night with no demons. What's going on here? And so again, I got like sent out of the office, and I went back to try to come up with a different budget solution. And that's the solution that we have in the movie, which is hiring really thin people. And instead of doing like full prosthetic demon suits, which would have been really expensive for each one of them, we only had 4. We had 2 heroines and 2 stunts. Ernest just shot them like there was tons of them, and we did them as kind of big makeups. They only played for a couple days, or at least they were supposed to, a couple days in the show, and so it kind of changed the whole, repackaging of it. And I guess, you guys please fill me in where I'm missing the other side that I wasn't there, but I guess they went back to the original script with this idea that, saving all this money in makeup effects, and that was the direction we went. One Saturday morning, I get this phone call from Gil, and he's like, "Hey, we're going." I'm like, "What? Huh? What are going what?" And he goes, "We got a green light. We're going." I'm like, "That's great. That's great. What's the new start date?" "Hasn't changed." And I'm like, and it was like 2 weeks away. And so fortunately we were pretty oiled at the time. We had a really good team, and, we had been doing the series for so long. So the series was always like 5 days of prep. Having 2 weeks was like, forever. And we just dove feet first and went for it. And we kind of just continued prepping the movie all the way through the shoot. Ernest and I would have meetings every day at lunch trying to figure out what we were going to do like the next couple days. And
we had some interesting ideas that got squashed because they were considered a little bit too extreme.
Like, can you?
Even for us.
Is there anything in there you could let us know about?
Yeah, Brenda Backey's character, the prostitute. Being a prostitute, I just going with what kind of a demon she would become. My original idea was that she would have like a big vagina dentalis that would open up in her stomach. That would open up, and a tongue would come out and grab Charles by the neck and try to pull him in.
Yeah, well, I still say we should reshoot that.
Never too late.
Yeah. Cy and I and Mark, actually, I believe we wrote that version, and the 3 of us just referred to it as the Pussy Monster.
Yeah. I still have, I think someplace in my garage, I had the conceptuals that we drew for that.
Mm-hmm.
But
call it semen fright.
Semen bite.
Title.
Or semen
but apparently what happened, Richard Donner's wife saw the concept for that, and she said, "No way, you putting this in the movie." So we had to come up with something else,
You just seen Videodrome. That's a reference to a vaginal opening in James Wood's body, but we'll move that along.
Well, I think it was very, and Ernest, this comes back to the Japanese sort of influence. That was a very sort of anime horror, Japanese horror type of concept that nothing like that had been done in an American movie at that point. I think that's one of the reasons, I know you were excited about it and thought it was really, was cool.
I had been watching this anime called The Legend of the Overfiend.
Right.
Yurokuso Doji, I think, but The Legend of the Overfiend. And it had some pretty extreme nonsense in it, I said, nobody's ever seen this in anything. These are anime. Imagine what they could be if they were live, practical effects, and
but also it wasn't just purely gratuitous. It was connected to character and the story. So which is why Cy and I embraced it so enthusiastically.
Not for the gratuitous part at all.
I thought it would have worked, but maybe if the stomach had gone up and down instead of sideways, maybe that would have gotten through. But
there's something about sort of happy accidents, the Orson Welles kind of philosophy. But it feels like in this movie, there's the demons alone, like they're so interesting. This sort of skinny, it's such an interesting aesthetic. Like there's something kind of, if you had your druthers and you were spending a lot of money and you were able to create the demons that you wanted to, might that have been
They kind of look like orcs, don't they?
They do. They kind of look like orcs meets, punk rock, a heavy metal show, right?
Right. The nose rings and the nipple rings and stuff, and the hair. It's so cool.
I'm wondering if Peter was inspired by our film for his orcs.
Yeah.
I think so, actually, because I know those guys down there. We're all kind of makeup effects buddies, and we all kind of like subtly pass along design, in the undertow to kind of wink at the others. So it's very possible.
Which I love,
I did too. Yeah, a lot of the demons. There was, like I said, there was 2 hero demons and 2 stunt demons, as we called them. The 2 hero demons were there were people that worked at our studio, that our effects shop, and since we were all just kids, and some of us never ate. We had some pretty scrawny people, and so it just all of a sudden we're like, you know what? Do you want to be in a monster suit? And we did that because we gave them these crazy leg extensions.
Yeah, they had to practice on those extensions and get used to them.
Yeah,
they always had trouble walking upstairs.
Yeah, or in reverse. We did a couple in reverse, but we really wanted them to be great on those. And we had actually just. I had worked on the original Predator, which had some huge problems with the leg extensions, and then Pumpkinhead had to tether it and all that stuff. And so we actually developed leg extensions for a movie right before Demon Night, and kind of spun that idea into the stilts here, made them much smaller. And since we kind of knew that it was half technology and half kind of conditioning, we were able to tell our guys that were working at the shops, like every morning, like exercise, you're going to run up and down the parking lot with these things and get your muscles ready, because we're going to kick your ass. This is going to be a hard shoot. You're going to be covered in masks and rubber, and you got a battery between your ass. This is not going to be
bad part about
that. Yes, indeed. And so it was, 2 of these guys that really kind of took on the part, and Walt and Josh, and they were our main demons, and they're really kind of all the demons in the movie aside from the stunts. And so,
those were just guys who worked in your studio.
Right. Wow. And Walt actually went on to have quite a career. He still works quite a bit as a monster and as this like demon character. He was actually in Dust to Dawn. I think Josh was too. They kind of stole our formula, borrowed our formula for Demon Night. And Walt's had quite a career. I think Josh has done a few other things, and so it was kind of a start for Walt as a monster performer.
Yeah, I remember. I know a big influence on me on how to do the action was Cameron's Aliens.
Yeah, huge.
And that's why we were able to just get away with 4 demons and just make them look like there's more. Just just like he did with the aliens in there. I think he only had like 4 or 5, but 4 in this direction. Use the same 4 coming in that direction. When you cut it together, you got 8 demons. So
yeah, and the way you shot it, where it's usually backlit and kind of moving weird and stuff. I defy anybody to come up and say that's the same demon doing it again. You don't notice. It's all beautifully orchestrated.
I think it holds up. What's great to me is that when you do practical effects and they're well designed, they actually age better. If you go back and look at early CGI, it looks so terrible. It looks like a bad video game.
Yeah, the cow and Twister.
Yeah, but if you see something like what you guys did in Demon Night, it's great because it's all real. It's like you had something to film, and it ages much better. I mean, those demons are great. They still are scary and cool, and
We were really fortunate to, Rick Boda, who shot it, was kind of used to having our crappy shit show up on Tales from the Crypt, the series, and he would put a light on it and a little this and a little that, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, Dick Smith was here. And Ernest also kind of, he came from like the exact same pages of, monster magazines that I did, and we all spoke that language. I mean, we were we didn't have any time, so we didn't really have a whole bunch of, honeymoon. We had to just jump right into it. So we had the hope the hell we liked each other, and we had the same references, and it was just bing, bang, boom, boom. Everybody just kind of glided together in this, like, I've never seen anything like it.
Not to jump in, but there's something that Todd said that just like clarified something in my head, because he said, that he and Ernest spoke that same monster language, And I think Cy and Mark and I spoke some of that also. But the other thing that we spoke and that I bonded with Ernest over in the Joel Silver's lobby was the hero side, right? The sort of action hero side. And one of the things that I think is really kind of singular and special about Demon Knight, at least at the time when it was made, which is 25 years ago in 1995, is that it's both those things, right? It's totally a monster movie, but it's totally a hero movie also. And that may not seem like a big deal now in 2020, but in 1995, that was kind of unheard of, actually, you know?
Yeah, Bill did a great job. I mean, you know,
Sadler.
Bill Sadler playing this enigmatic guy who, you know, comes out of nowhere, who has these weird symbols that happen on his hand. You know, he played it beautifully, you know, just that level of being tired, you know, having done it for so long.
Yeah.
And, you know, just always scared, always watching his back, always, you know, jumping at whatever sound he heard, you know, which is the way it should play. And it worked beautifully at the end when he tells Geraldine, his last words to Geraldine are, "Watch your back."
Right.
You know, because that's what he's been doing as long as I forget how old he is. He's like 70 something years old in the film, but he, you know, all those years of just watching his back, you know, and he just did a great job. And then when he explains to everybody what the mythology is, you know, where the demons come from and everything, and I love the way he says at the end, "So now you know, you feel better."
Yeah.
Such a nuanced performance, you know.
Yeah.
It's the dark pathos. The dark pathos of the hero. It's just it's a terrific performance, and again, terrific casting, right? Like, he feels like he just is that guy. I mean, for me, like he's like he feels like he's like heroic in part of his entity, and has this deep undercurrent of being haunted. You know, terrific cast.
We have one Bill Sadler story, which is, I think the only day that Ethan and I were on the set, I think Ernest was doing the World War I flashback, the Doughboy flashback.
Right.
And we got introduced to William Sadler. And I guess it was, I don't know if it was a backhanded compliment or what, but we met him and he said, "Man, you guys read too many comic books."
Glad you did.
Yeah, thank goodness.
I think that's a compliment.
Yeah,
Totally
it
is.
Well, in 2020, it's unquestionably a compliment. But again, in 1995 Hollywood, it was a very different world.
That's very true. Yeah.
They would have said graphic novels.
We were ahead of the wave.
Totally ahead of the wave. And that's, I mean, what an amazing thing. Like, I mean, out of all the genre pictures, like, out of 25 years, this stands out as a really unique film. Why do you guys think that? I mean, it's, you know, it really jumps out to you as like, oh, this is a really special little film. I mean, the cast, the script, the direction, the special effects, everything about it sort of kind of gels. Why do you think after 25 years this is so special still?
I mean, it opened up at number 2. You know, you know, it's always had somewhat of a fan base. You know, usually after you make a movie and it's out there, you just kind of, okay, it's out there, I'm done with it, it's gone. You know, but over the years, I've been surprised to hear how many people have really loved it. I was doing a movie up in Canada, and Chinese actress was in it. The lady who was in Wong Kar-wai's film, was it Express? Remember the lady with the airplane?
Chungking Express?
Yeah, Chungking Express.
The older, the woman with the dark glasses,
No, the stewardess.
Oh,
Tony Leung does the airplane on her back, on her back.
Yeah.
The Hong Kong pop star. I forget her name. Yeah, but
she was acting in it. And,
Fei Wong, I think, perhaps.
I'll have to bring it up because I worked with her on a movie. We were sitting at this basketball game. We got invited to. We were in Toronto. We got invited to a Raptors game, the Knicks and the Raptors, And we're sitting there, and she said, "So what other movies have you done?" And I said, "Well, I used to shoot movies for Spike Lee." She said, "I heard him. I don't know too much about him." I said, "I did a movie called Juice." She said, "I don't know about that." I said, I did a movie called Surviving the Game. She said, "Oh, I don't know about that." I said, "I did a movie called Demon Knight." She said, "You did Demon Knight?" "Oh my God." And she just started shaking me. "You did Demon Knight?" I said, "Yeah."
Is this Valerie Chow?
Yeah, I think she had a couple of different names. I think she changed it.
Air hostess and the
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the second female lead in that half of Chungking Express side. She's not the girl who works at on the street corner.
She's not Bridget Lynn. She's not.
Right.
Yeah.
If it isn't the Crypt Keeper himself, hello, John Kassir.
Don't forget to wear a mask. No, not that one.
To those who don't know, John Kassir is he's a legendary actor, the voice of how many Tales of the Crypts? It's got to be 100, right?
93.
Tonight's our big scream-in.
Are you coming from a reading of Frankenstein, a Zoom reading of Frankenstein?
That's correct. We're doing a Zoom performance without theater in the real being happening these days. They're actually trying to keep some of these theaters alive and keep their audiences interesting. They're not really making any money to help support their theater, but it's something that's important for the different artistic groups that are trying to keep their theaters active by doing Zoom productions.
Yeah.
And my wife and I are both theater actors historically, and we've done a few. We did some Pinter stuff last year. I'll post it on my Facebook if you want to check it out. I think they only allow 100 people, so don't crash my site, but their site. But but I'm playing the creature.
Nice.
It's the most recent version of Frankenstein that was done at the National Theater in
National
London.
Theater.
How you doing, John?
Gil Adler sends his regards. Hey Charlie, there you are down there.
I'm over here. You're over there on my page. You move your visor to the left. That'll help the browser because it's on your brow. Good. That's perfect. Print that one.
I got these. These are from the EC Comics people. They make these hats. They're pretty cool, huh?
Super cool.
Those are nice.
How is Gil?
I'll send you guys some.
How's
If I
Gil
get your
doing?
addresses, I'll send for you. But you guys have obviously been talking to the guys who really made this movie happen. I just think, I've gone on record saying it's not. I don't only think it's just a really great Tales from the Crypt movie. I think it's one of my favorite horror movies ever. And everybody that have been involved with this, and I constantly get that from fans. They put it in their top 5, their top 10 horror movies ever. From the from the story to the actors to the direction to the soundtrack. Forget it. There's nobody's ever said that that's not the best soundtrack ever for a horror movie. So, just glad to be a part of it. I mean, Tales from the Crypt obviously it's unbelievable how it's still around, huh? What have you guys been talking about? What have they been grilling you with?
We've been making fun of you most of the time.
Recipes and Chinese actresses whose names are like recipes. Cave Dolphins was.
I miss you, Charlie Fleischer.
I miss myself too.
What was the convergence between Tales from the Crypt side of things and this movie? Because it does feel like this is, not that I love Tales from the Crypt, huge fan, but it does feel like this is a unique standout in this, right? And, if you think about the script in terms of how it was developed sort of outside of the regular probably development with the Tales, was that a happy marriage?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was mostly the crew. I mean, Demon Knight was mostly the crew from the television show. I think it was season 4 we had just finished. And so this was, like I said, this is the summer hiatus. And, why take a break? Let's go make a feature. And so we were all pretty tight at that point. And so that was really, you know, everybody else on this phone call, they kind of came in new to this kind of machinery. And, you know, like I said before, we were kind of taunted with this movie. You know, look how cool this movie could be. Oh, now they're Blues Brothers. So when we came back in, like, we want to make them demons, man. Come on, we got it. We're Tales from the Crypt. We all had kind of this kind of spirit to get in there and really, you know, show them what we could do. And, you know, very much so in all departments, but specifically effects and makeup effects and visual effects. And we all were big fans of Ernest, and we all loved the cast as well. And so it was almost like, you know, we had kind of taken a step up, you know, now we're in college of Tales from the Crypt.
Todd is absolutely right about once things got to the floor and production, the person who covers the entire process here is really Ernest, because Cyrus and I and Mark Bishop, you know, we were the originators of the spec screenplay, and then it was picked up by Tales from the Crypt, and that was like a fantastic dream come true for us as aspiring young, you know, starving wannabe screenwriters. And we had some middling success, but really it was our big break, and it was going to be our first studio movie. Mm-hmm. And there was what you described as, it is Tales from the Crypt, but it's also not exactly Tales from the Crypt. And there is something of an inherent creative tension there, right? And there was some tension in the development of the script, the further development of the script after it became a Tales from the Crypt project. And I think it all worked out in the end really, really well. And I know for Cy and myself, it's one of the projects that we're absolutely love the most and are the most proud of 25 years later. And the story that Ernest told about the Chinese actress, our version of that story is we were running a TV show, because we work in TV as well as features. This is probably almost, if not like 20 years after Demonite had been made. And we're running a TV show, and one of the writers on the staff, who was a very accomplished Broadway playwright, actually, who's now gone on to create and run her own TV shows. We had hired her, and we were working with her for months. And Demon Knight had never come up, and I guess she had never checked our Wikipedia page or whatever. And we were just at lunch one day in the office, and she mentioned about how there was going to be like a Halloween screening of Demon Knight at the Egyptian Theater. And Cy and I are sitting there, and we're like, oh, you like that movie? And she was like that movie? That's like my favorite movie of all time, you know? Yeah. We were like, you know, we wrote that movie. And she exploded the same way that Chinese actress exploded on Ernest, you know, and she's African-American. Her name's Katori Hall, and I mean, she loved the movie, but I think one of the reasons why she loved that movie was Jada Pinkett, you know, playing the hero and being, like Ernest said, you know, the last woman standing. And she just couldn't believe, she was, you know, she was on like cloud nine. I think she was more happy to have the job that she'd had for the past half year, because it turned out her bosses had written that movie.
John, were you ever on set, or and Ernest also? Did you direct sort of the kind of the introductions? Did you actually direct that?
No, Gil Adler did those, because he asked me if I minded if he did those, you know, the wraparounds.
Right.
And I got to tell you, Gil was such a supportive producer. He was, you know, you have producers that fight you, but then you got producers that enable you, you know, and Gil was one of those kinds of guys. He was, I love Gil.
Yeah.
And he was, you know, whenever problems came up, we would always huddle and figure out ways of solving problems, you know, and he was great at that. So I said, hey man, you know, sure, if you want to, this is your baby, you know it, and actually he knows it better than I do,
right?
You know, because I had never worked on the series, so I said, yeah, go ahead with it, man.
And there was a certain finesse to putting those together, you know, each week, you know, and I think most of the directors along the way during the series stood back and let, you know, whether it was Kevin or Gil or whoever, follow through on those, because they had a certain they had a certain unity to them that made the series more than just an anthology series,
Right.
but your typical roller coaster ride that had the ride up to the top that you could expect to always be fun, and that was the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah.
And those sequences, and it's what made it feel like the comic book each week. I thought
Yeah, I didn't want to mess with it. I didn't, you know, and my editor, Steve Lovejoy, I mean, first of all, doing Demon Knight introduced me to Steve. And after Demon Knight, I think Steve and I have done about 18 shows, 18 films together.
Wow, that's great.
You know, he became
awesome.
my editor of choice. You know, he's just such a cool guy, very calm. You know, always has like a little Zen garden in the editing room. You know, and but he knew the show, and he actually did a little bit of second unit on the stuff. You know, we had a little second unit that, you know, Steve showed me that he could do it, and he did.
You're known for your Zen ways too, Mr. Dickerson. Apparently, you have a calm aura that controls the set in a way that everybody feels everything's cool.
Yeah, it has lost me work. Because, people, yeah, it has lost me work. People say, well, he's so calm. Is he passionate about it? Does he even care about it? You know, but, you know.
That's when you need to tell them it's really just a buried slow burn.
Well, I always say it's more of a Buddha nature. You know, I just, because I'm concentrating, you know, and as long as everything is going the way it should be going, then I'm cool. But I have, you know, I've lost my temper a couple of times, you know, but not that often. I usually, you know, spend a lot of time in pre-production. I'm usually getting what I want. So.
Yeah, I don't ever remember a time seeing you sweat on that show. You know, we had a lot of intense meetings and everything had to go really fast.
It was internal.
Yeah, but I think it was also like, you know, you were really good about seeing ahead, you know, like sometimes working with directors, they can be really like focused on what's going on at that moment. And it's difficult, especially with all the craziness of putting prep within production. You know, I bugged you a lot and kind of like kept asking a lot of questions, and you were so good about, well, we need this and this, and I'm going to shoot it this way, and we would scribble it out, and you would give me film references.
Yeah, well, for me, as a director, one of the things that I feel is my responsibility is to make the work environment as productive as possible. And, you know, the original idea was to possibly shoot it out in the desert, you know, and I knew that was going to be counterproductive, to be out in the desert in a house all nights. And I said, that's not going to work. And so I talked Gil into trying to do it on a stage. And so that's how we found the decommissioned airplane hangar at Van Nuys Airport.
Right next to the DEA.
and it allowed us to work, you know, from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m., you know, and to create the environment. And the production designer was Christian Wagner, who had designed my previous film, Surviving the Game. And it was his idea to make that an old church, the hotel an old church. And he built the structure so that we could shoot the outside from one basic angle, you know, one side, but then also the interior sets were inside that same structure. So it was easy to go interior, out, exterior, and then we put blacks around everything else, and to keep it nighttime. And it just gave us so much more control, and it made it much more comfortable to solve the problems, you know, because we did have the control. I think I heard that after we finished it, they used that same place to shoot Congo. The jungle scenes in Frank Marshall's film Congo. You know, they had a lot more money than we did, so they could go home.
Yes.
But I mean, you know, I thought we were able to make it work, and you know, so while we're shooting, you know, the outside world we could keep track of. I remember while we were shooting, the OJ thing was happening. I remember in between setups, the sound man had a little TV set, and when OJ was in his
Bronco.
His little white Bronco, you know, we were keeping track of all of that. But it just made it a much more comfortable environment and gave us more control.
outside of the pigeons.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was a sound problem. We tried different things. We tried things like shooting off a blank shot before a take. That worked for a little while. Then we found some sort of a ultrasonic thing, you know, an ultrasonic alarm that only the birds could hear. That worked for a little while, but it turned into a sound editing problem, which we were able to pull off.
Space was just so big. I mean, it just had its own flock.
Yeah, yeah. But it allowed us to do so much right there. You know, we did the main set. We did the crucifixion scene. We did the doughboy scene, the World War I scene. All that stuff, all on the same stage. So it was easy to move from one to the other.
Well, my last question is, why is there no Demon Knight 2? We want it. Everybody wants this. It's the film is set up to be a Demon Knight 2.
I was what?
Why is there no Demon Knight 2?
Well,
I haven't seen it.
No, it's the plus and the minus of it being Tales from the Crypt. So what was really great for Ethan and I and Mark when Joel and Bob and Universal and Walter Hill and everybody picked the script to be part of the Tales from the Crypt universe was that people forget at that period in the early 90s, the horror movies were sort of dead at the box office. Nothing was really going on until you have this dead period from the late 80s until Scream comes out, I think in like 96. And so there was some straight to video stuff, but really Tales from the Crypt was the big horror franchise in that period. So there was really nothing going on. The studios weren't making these types of movies. So when it became a Tales from the Crypt film, it was really, we thought, well, either we'll have to make this movie ourselves in somebody's basement, or it'll get made as, you know, a straight to video by, you know, there were those companies back in the day, I call them the marks, Vidmark, ProMark, Trimark, Skidmark. There were all these straight to video companies.
I love Skidmark. That was a great company.
There you go. So, but the fact that it got picked up by Tales from the Crypt was like, oh, this is going to be a real movie and it'll play in theaters. But unfortunately, apparently the rights with Tales from the Crypt are so convoluted with the comic books and the TV show. They were going to redo the TV show. M. Night Shyamalan was going to do a new version a few years ago. And again, it fell apart because of the rights issues. It's such a convoluted thing. And because Demon Knight is part of Tales from the Crypt now, it is now also mired up in all these rights issues and all this craziness. So,
well, that's the long-term answer looking back from 25 years later. The short-term answer in the immediate aftermath of Demon Knight's release and commercial success is that it was followed rather quickly by the second Tales from the Crypt feature film, Bordello of Blood, which was not as commercially successful. And
first it was dead easy, and then it kind of staggered into Bordello by default.
Right, and that kind of whatever put the lid on the survival of Tales from the Crypt movies for a while. You know,
I heard it's just because Charlie wasn't available.
Well, yes,
that's the real reason.
Yeah. Charlie,
Steve Lovejoy told me that when they had the first preview screenings of Bordello of Blood, people were thinking that it was. They went to see the screening thinking that it was a continuation of the Demon Knight thing.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't. And apparently, I guess in the Q&As afterwards, I said, well, where's the key? Where's, you know, we thought this was Demon Knight. So I think they had to, I've never seen Bordello. I've just couldn't look at it. But I think they did put the key in there to try and continue the story. Is that correct?
Yeah, there was a bunch of pickups. So that was shot in Vancouver many moons ago. And when they were having troubles, they kind of, finished it up the best they could, sent it all back down south where we were shooting like Perversions of Science and another Tales spinoff, and I think we were into the 5th season. And so all of a sudden we had all these Bordello blood pickups to do. And we redid the ending, and we added the key, and there was quite a few in there that we had to retweak. And so, you know, I think, you know, for everybody's best abilities, they tried. There are some sequences that work, but for the most part, it doesn't quite have the tanginess of a Tales from the Crypt episode, you know, which was always balancing sex and horror and comedy. And this one kind of seemed almost like a farce.
Well, it's a real shame because it feels like it's rife. We could have Wally actually go postal. I think even today we could bring that back, and it's appropriate. You know, it's thematically right. It feels like a shame.
You're running the post office now.
Running the post office. Yeah, you're Louis DeJoy's.
Man.
Right.
I always wanted to see more of the World War I storyline, because I thought that would have been really interesting, chasing demons during World War I in the trenches.
Oh, Cyrus and I and Mark Bishop wrote, like, you know, synopses for 3 sequels. Well, somewhere on our shelves, you know, gathering dust. But.
Hey, listen, you know, I mean, as it's supposed to have gone through so much of time, it begs itself for an entire series on its own. Maybe you can not call it Tales from the Crypt. You can just call it Demon Night.
We'll call it Creep Show.
Eloise.
You know, and I mean, that's the way around the rights. You know?
No, this is true.
I wish you guys could figure that out.
Would show up and shut us down pretty quickly.
Demon Night, lose the K.
Lose the K, yeah. No K.
Get really high and watch it again, and like, wow, I don't think I've seen this.
Well, definitely a movie that keeps you.
We could bring Jada in as Geraldine years later.
Yeah.
American Demon Night in Paris.
Yeah,
excellent. I love this idea.
I think it's ripe for it. I mean, there's so many opportunities there, and you know the fan base wants to see it. I know I want to see it. Do it, make it happen, dudes. You guys.
All right.
Thank you.
From your lips to the film and TV gods' ears.
Thank you, guys. Thanks so much. From the Sleepy Hollow International Film Festival, we really appreciate you guys. We love this movie. We're so happy you took the time out for us to do this, and I think the fans are going to love hearing you talk about it. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Give our peace to everyone at Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah.